Hello, Pokebros. Welcome to episode 9 of my rewrite of Ash's Kanto journey. Last time, Ash evolved his Haunter into Gengar and Poliwhirl into Poliwrath. He also won his 8th gym badge. Then after some training, Ash would set off for the Pokemon League, which is where we pick up today. We would open up with Ash, Brock, and Green all walking along Route 22 on their way to the Indigo League. Ash would be bursting with energy because he is beyond excited for the league. While traveling, a trainer would approach Ash. The trainer would then challenge Ash to a battle with the stipulation that if he wins, he gets all of Ash's gym badges. Brock would tell Ash not to risk it, but Ash would accept anyway. The battle would be a one-on-one, and the trainer would send out Exeggutor, and Ash would send out Charizard. The trainer would call for a Psychic, but Charizard would dodge, then landing a Flamethrower. The trainer would go for an Egg Bomb, but Charizard would dodge again, then striking with a Wing Attack. The Exeggutor would be very weakened. The trainer would then call for a Razor Leaf. Charizard would then fry the leaves with a Flamethrower, then attacking Exeggutor with a Slash, taking him out. The trainer would then break down. Ash would go to ask if he was okay, and the trainer would reveal that he had won all 8 badges, but someone stole them from him. Ash would feel bad and would vow to help him find them. Our trio would then split up to find the trainer's badges. Brock would look with Onyx, but wouldn't find anything. Green would look, but wouldn't find anything either. However, while Ash was looking, he would come across Team Rocket. He would see them with a badge case. Ash would then challenge Team Rocket to a battle for the badges back. Ash would send out Fearow and Pikachu, while Team Rocket would send out Arbok and Weezing. Ash would call for a Thunderbolt and Drill Peck. Both attacks would land on Weezing, taking him out. Arbok would then go for a Sludge Bomb, but Fearow would pick up Pikachu, saving him. Pikachu would then fire off a Thunderbolt, taking Arbok out. Team Rocket would drop the badges, and they would dip. Ash would then return the badges to the trainer. The trainer would introduce himself as Mike, and he would hope that he gets to battle Ash in the league. Our trio would then shortly arrive at the Indigo Plateau. Ash would show his badges, and after a quick inspection, he would be granted entry. After entering, Ash would see many trainers. Most importantly, Ash would see Richie and Gary. Ash would meet back up with Richie, and they'd promise to meet in the finals. Shortly after the opening ceremony would begin. After the opening ceremony, the first round matches would begin. In the first round, all battles are 3-on-3. Ash would discover that his battle is on the water battlefield. Brock would suggest to Ash that he bring Pokemon that can easily traverse the water field. Hearing this, Ash would decide to make a few transfers. We would then cut to Ash heading out for his first battle. The trainer would start the battle with a Kingler, while Ash would start with Dratini. The trainer would call for a Vice Grip, but Dratini would dodge, then going for a Slam. The attack would knock Kingler back. The trainer would then order a Hyper Beam. Dratini would dodge again, then she would charge him with an Outrage. Her attack would land, but in the process she would get hit by a Crab Hammer. Both Pokemon would be weakened, but only Kingler would faint. The trainer would then send in Jinx. Ash would call for a Slam, but Jinx would dodge, then strike him with an Ice Beam. The attack would land, knocking Dratini back. Ash would then call for a Twister, knocking Jinx up into the air. While she was in the air, Ash would call for an Outrage. The attack would land, taking Jinx out. Dratini would then begin to glow, and would evolve into Dragonair. Ash would be super excited. The trainer would then send out Electabuzz. Ash would call out to Dragonair, saying, "Dragonair, are you okay to keep fighting?" She would nod, and the final fight would begin. Ash would call for an Outrage, and the trainer would call for a Thunder Punch. Both Pokemon would charge in, landing their attacks. Ash would then order a Slam, but Electabuzz would dodge, then striking with a Thunderbolt, doing big damage. The trainer would then tell Electabuzz to follow up with a Mega Punch. Dragonair would dodge, and would then strike with a Slam. Electabuzz would try to stand, but would fall, winning Ash the battle. Ash would run out to hug Dragonair. After the battle, Brock and Green would congratulate Ash. Ash would then watch the end of Richie's match, seeing him defeat a trainer's Magmar with a Hydro Pump from his Golduck. We would then cut to Ash's second round match. Ash would walk out to the rock battlefield. Ash's opponent would lead Dodrio, while Ash would lead Gengar. Ash would call for a Shadow Ball, but it wouldn't do any damage. The trainer would then call for a Drill Peck, doing big damage. Ash would then realize that Dodrio was a normal type. Knowing this, Ash would call for a Sludge Bomb. Dodrio would dodge, however, then going for a Double Team. Having faced this attack before, Ash would order Gengar to spew out a bunch of Sludge Bombs. This would work, with the real Dodrio being hit and getting knocked out. The trainer would then send in Sand Slash. The trainer would order Sand Slash to use an aerial ace. Gengar would try to dodge, but it wouldn't be possible. Gengar would fall to the ground. The trainer would then tell Sand Slash to follow up with a dig. The attack would land, doing big damage. Ash would then order a Shadow Ball. Sand Slash would tank the attack, then retaliating with a dig, taking Gengar out. Ash would then send in Tangela. The trainer would call for an aerial ace, and it would do good damage. Ash would then order a Vine Whip. The attack would land, knocking Sand Slash back. Ash would then tell Tangela to charge in and go for a bind. Tangela would do so, but Sand Slash would dodge, then striking with a slash. Sand Slash would then go for another aerial ace, but Ash would order Tangela to use bind. This would stop Sand Slash, and Tangela would hold him in the air. Ash would then order a Solar Beam, and the attack would take Sand Slash out. Last out for the old man trainer would be Rapidash. Ash would then recall Tangela, switching to Poliwrath for a better type matchup. The trainer would then call for a Fire Blast. Poliwrath would dodge, then landing a Brick Break. Rapidash would then charge in with a takedown. Ash would call for a Body Slam, and the two attacks would collide in the middle, with both Pokemon taking a lot of damage. The man would then call for another Fire Blast. This time, the attack would land, knocking Poliwrath back. Poliwrath would then fire off a full power Hydro Pump, taking Rapidash out. Ash would then run to hug Poliwrath. The old man would congratulate Ash on a great battle. Afterwards, Brock would congratulate Ash, telling him that if he wins one more battle, he'll move on to the victory tournament in the Indigo Stadium. This would excite Ash. Our trio would then head out to grab some dinner. While out at dinner, Ash, Brock, and Green would run into Misty. While talking, Ash would learn that Misty was participating in the league, and she too had won 2 battles. The two would wish each other luck, and they would then part ways. The next day, Ash would head to the stadium to see his match. He would then discover that he was battling Misty on the ice field. Ash would be ready to win. Ash would enter the battlefield. He and Misty would wish each other luck, then they'd throw out their Pokemon. Misty would send out Slowbro, while Ash would send in Beedrill. Misty would say, "It's going to take more than a type advantage to beat me." Ash would then say, "We'll see." Ash would then call for a Twin Needle. Beedrill would charge in, dodging a Psychic from Slowbro. The attack would land, doing big damage. Misty would then call for a Surf. Slowbro would then send a giant wave crashing in on Beedrill, knocking him to the ground. Misty would then call for a Psychic, knocking Beedrill back. Ash would then call for another Twin Needle. Beedrill would charge in. Slowbro would go for an Ice Beam, but Beedrill would dodge, then landing the Twin Needle, taking Slowbro out. Misty would then send in Gyarados. Ash would call for a cut, but Gyarados would dodge, then going for a Thrash. Beedrill would be hit, taking severe damage. Ash would call for a Poison Sting. Gyarados would take the hit, and then would charge him with another Thrash. Beedrill would take the hit, getting knocked to the ground. He would try to stand, but he would faint. Ash would then send in Dragonair. Ash would order an Outrage, but Misty would order a Dragon Rage. Both Pokemon would charge in with their attacks. They would meet in the middle, with both taking severe damage. Ash would then order a Slam, while Misty would order a Thrash. Again, both attacks would land, doing big damage. Both Pokemon would be close to fainting. Ash would yell, "Dragonair, use Outrage!" Misty would scream, "Gyarados, use Dragon Rage!" The two attacks would then collide, causing a giant cloud of smoke. When the smoke clears, both Pokemon would be fainted. Ash and Misty would both be down to their last Pokemon. Ash would scream, "Pikachu, I choose you!" Misty would then yell, "Starmie, I choose you!" And the final battle would begin. Ash would call for a Thunderbolt, but Starmie would dodge, then going for a Water Pulse. Pikachu would dodge too, charging him with a Quick Attack. Pikachu would knock Starmie back. Misty would then order a Water Pulse. Pikachu would try to dodge, but he wouldn't be fast enough. Ash would then order a Thunderbolt. The attack would land, paralyzing Starmie. Ash would then order a follow-up Quick Attack, and it would take Starmie out. Misty would recall Starmie and would begin to cry. Ash would comfort her, telling her she did a great job. Ash would then leave the battlefield, meeting back up with Brock and Green. They would congratulate Ash for making it to the top 32 in the Indigo Stadium. Ash would then go to see Richie's top 64 match. Ash would be shocked when he'd see Richie battling Gary. Both would be on their last Pokemon, Richie with Venusaur and Gary with Blastoise. Blastoise would fire off a Hydro Pump, and Venusaur would fire off a Solar Beam. The attacks would collide, but Solar Beam would be more powerful, taking Blastoise out. Ash would be shocked. He had no idea Richie had gotten so strong. Ash then had to see his matchup in the top 32. Of course, he was up against Richie. Ash would be stressing. He just saw Richie be the strongest trainer he had known. Brock would help calm Ash down, telling him that he had a day to prepare. This would help Ash a bit. We'd then cut to the next day, where Ash is getting some last-minute training with the team he's bringing to the battle. Brock would ask Ash if he was sure on the team he was bringing, and Ash would say, "I'm sure. For my last 3-on-3 battle, I want to bring Pikachu, Beedrill, and Charizard." Brock would say okay, and then Ash would head for his battle in the Indigo Stadium. Ash and Richie would look each other down across the pitch, and they would be ready to fight. Ash would yell, "Beedrill, I choose you," and Richie would scream, "Happy, I choose you." Then they'd throw out Beedrill and Butterfree. The two bugs would battle fiercely. Beedrill would charge in with Twin Needle after Twin Needle. Butterfree would dodge most of the attacks. Richie would then say, "Happy, use Sleep Powder." The attack would land, putting Beedrill to sleep. Butterfree would then fire off a side beam, taking Beedrill out. Ash would then send in Charizard. Butterfree would try to dodge attacks, but a powerful flamethrower from Charizard would take Butterfree out. Richie would then say, "Quacker, I choose you," and he'd throw out Golduck. Ash would then call for a Charizard to use Slash. He would charge in, but Golduck would use Confusion, then throwing Charizard to the side. Richie would then call for a Water Pulse. Charizard would get hit, taking severe damage. Ash would then tell Charizard to charge in with a Slash again. However, Golduck would hit him with a Water Pulse, again doing big damage. Ash would then tell Charizard to use Seismic Toss. Charizard would pick Golduck up and he would toss him into the ground, taking him out. Richie would then say, "Sparky, I choose you." Richie would then send in his Pikachu. Pikachu would fire off multiple Thunderbolts, and Charizard would struggle to dodge all the attacks. Ash would then call for Charizard to use a Flamethrower. The attack would land, doing big damage. Richie would then order Sparky to use a Thunderbolt. The attack would land, defeating Charizard. Ash would then yell, "Pikachu, I choose you." The final fight would be Pikachu versus Pikachu. The two electric types would brawl, with both landing quick attacks and Thunderbolts. Richie would call for a dig, and Pikachu would get hit, taking big damage. Richie would then tell Sparky to follow up with a quick attack. Ash would order Pikachu to dodge, and he would do so, then striking with a Thunderbolt. Sparky would be really weakened, but so would Pikachu. Both trainers would call for their last moves. Pikachu, use Quick Attack. Sparky, use Body Slam. Both Pokemon would collide in the middle. Both Pokemon would get hit, but only Ash's Pikachu would fall. Ash would run out and grab Pikachu, and then he'd congratulate Richie on his win. Ash would then head for the tunnel, but would begin to cry. Brock and Green would see Ash and would try to comfort him, but Ash would run off. Ash would then go and mope in his room. After a little while, Ash would sit and reflect in his room. Ash would then realize that he was kind of being a baby. Yeah, he lost, but he was one of the 32 strongest trainers in Kanto. Instead of moping around and being a baby, he should train and try to get stronger so he can do better next time. Ash would then go meet back up with Brock and Green. The two of them would be happy to see Ash back to his normal spirits. Our trio would then set off for their next adventure. That's all for Kanto, folks. I hope you enjoyed the region. I do want to preface that as I move on to other regions, I don't think this journey will be canon. The main story will stay, but I don't really like that team I gave Ash. But besides that, comment down below what region you want to see next. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye, Pokebros.